You gonna tell me when?
I'd like to call to order this special meeting of the council on, not technically a special meeting of the council, but a special meeting for us in that we are sitting as a Board of Appeals. The procedure is a tad different in this format, so if you all will indulge us just a second. The first thing we're going to do is call this meeting to order and ask Coach Alvin Thomas if he will lead us in the invocation, followed by the pledge. If you will please stand.
Let's bow our heads. Most Heavenly Father, once again, Lord, we come with praise, come with thanksgiving, thanking you, Lord, for the many blessings you bestowed upon each of us. And as we have this meeting tonight, Lord, we ask that you guide, lead, and direct us throughout the night. I pray, Lord, that you bless each and every person under the sound of my voice. And, Lord God, as we leave this place tonight, we ask that you allow each of us to get home safe and sound. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have two councilmen who are on their way, so we will be looking for them to join us shortly. Councilman Turner, Councilman Ogeron are both on their way. Councilman Mason is not available this evening. He is involved in another function. So, Cinnamon, that's how we stack up tonight. There will be a public comment moment at the right time here tonight. So if you have any public comment you want to make, see Cinnamon, get one of those red and green cards there, hand it in to her, and you'll be called upon to speak at the appropriate time. This is an appeal relative to Belle Sylvain subdivision, a major revision to the preliminary plat located on Highway 73, approximately 2,800 feet north of Highway 74 in Council District 8, and is zoned medium intensity. Inquest Level Development, LLC, and the engineering was done by Quality Engineering. During this appeal hearing, we will conduct this meeting under Robert's Rules of Orders, as we do all of our other meetings. My rulings on any procedure here are final. We will begin this process with the appellant having 20 minutes. He made that request in a timely fashion, and I have granted it. He will present his appeal, he will then, gracious, I'm reading the wrong thing here, I apologize. And then after he has presented his case, I'm going to call on Jerome, our planning director, and Mr. Joey Turo, who handles our transportation issues, and they are going to have some comments. Subsequent to that, there will be a public hearing. Speakers will be then granted 3 minutes. I'll call on you as based on your cards. And then after that, there'll be a 10-minute rebuttal by the appellant. After that, I'm going to ask our attorney to join the council in an executive session so that we can discuss some legal issues relative to this case. And then after that, there will be discussion here by this body. Questions can be asked of any party that they desire. So does everybody understand where we are?
Yes, ma'am.
Forgive me for my stumbling. We don't do this one very often. I do want to mention to you that it will take 8 votes of this council sitting as this appeal board to overturn the decision of our Planning and Zoning Commission. Okay. At this time, the appellant may begin his 20-minute presentation.
Good evening, Ms. Casso and gentlemen. My name's David Cohn. I'm an attorney. I'm from Baton Rouge. I represent the applicant, Inquest Development. We're here tonight, obviously, about an appeal from the Planning Commission on Belle Sylvain subdivision. The applicant on appeal went before the Planning Commission on August 12th and asked for removal of a condition. That condition was on the preliminary plat. I think it was item number 13. Item number 13 said that no certificate of occupancy lots within Phase 3 will be granted until the bid is awarded for the construction of the roadway connection to Bluff Road. Well, to fill in those holes, you can't get a certificate of occupancy until you build out the subdivision. You can't build out the subdivision, obviously, until the developer or the applicant spends the money and then goes forward to build a house and then seek the certificate of occupancy to the new owner, buyer, whomever. So it's a great expense to get to a certificate of occupancy, and everybody, I think, knows that, but I'm just saying it for edification purposes to let you know that when we're talking about asking this appeal board to remove this paragraph 13 from the preliminary plat, we're asking you to take the risk and the delay of building out Phase 3 off the shoulders of this applicant and the developer, because they can't go forward and build it. And in short form fashion, if you don't remove it, where does that leave the applicant? Well, what we're going to find out as I proceed through this presentation, and I think what we probably already suspect, the connector to Bluff Road was a connector on the west end of Belle Savant Avenue that was supposed to connect to Bluff. This was all heavily debated back 5 years ago, December of 2015, when all this took place, when it went on the preliminary plat. But the idea was back then, between the state, the parish, and the way it was presented to the applicant, is look, the state is going to go expropriate that property on the west end of Belle Savant Avenue. We're going to let a contract. We're going to rock on. So at that time, knowing how long it might take to build out other phases of the subdivision, Phase 3 didn't matter all that much. It could just kind of get stuck off to the side and wait. And it has waited. It's waited for 5 years. But in 2018, this applicant renewed its efforts to say, look, what are you going to do? And in the tennis match between the parish and the state and the bouncing back and forth and the vacillation over this, everyone has come to realize is that the connector to Belle Savant Avenue will not be built to Bluff Road as planned by the state. In fact, I think it's pretty clear, at least to this applicant, that Belle Savant Avenue is not going to enter into any decision of a connector to Bluff Road in LA 73. Just not happening. It's its subdivision. Now, when this subdivision got approved, the state, had they built the connector, was going to put a signal or a roundabout at LA 73 and Belle Savant Avenue. Why? Well, the reason is the burden that was going to come from Bluff Road on top of what was on the subdivision. They wanted to make those improvements. They thought they would be necessary, okay? To say it another way, no connector, you don't need those road improvements. Those road improvements I just mentioned, and the Planning Commission got balled up in that. And they kind of lost their way, if you know what I mean, is that if you don't build this connector, those improvements weren't there. Just because the Planning Commission thought it was a good idea to have them, you can't do that. Why? Because when this subdivision was approved in 2015, there was several requirements that were made for traffic from the engineering department for approval of the subdivision, all convoluted somehow into a multitude of traffic reports that was prepared by Neil Schaefer and Associates, the ultimate impact of which was they had like 4 or 5 things that they had to do. I have a letter in your binder at tab 6. In that letter at tab 6 is a letter dated October 7, 2020 from Nick Ferlito. And what he said is the last sentence. There was no requirement requiring a secondary connection to LA 928 Bluff Road in this approval. Then he goes on to say, based on the attached approval letter from the Parish of Engineering Department, and there's a letter attached dated October 14, 2015, signed by Mr. Turner, it says that the approval required traffic improvements of an exclusive right turn lane and left turn lane for Belle Savant Avenue at LA 73, a southbound right lane into Belle Savant Avenue from LA 73, the restriping of the existing center left turn lane on LA 73 to provide for a left turn lane into Belle Savant Avenue. All these requirements have been implemented. Okay, so now we're going back to 2015. Under a different development code, by the way, to say they met every criteria they had to meet for this subdivision approval. But what we had hanging out here is this hope of the state and the parish, and I do it too. If I can get the state to build a connector that's going to help my traffic situation, have at it. Well, the parish drank the Kool-Aid. It got sold to the applicant because they had plenty of time to have to worry about this later, and the state was promising, we're fixing to crack on this. They didn't crack. They didn't do anything. Now they've abandoned it. So what do we have here? We have a condition on a preliminary plat that will not be fulfilled. 1. 2, it's outside of the, discretion of the developer to build it. Why? He doesn't own the land anyway. For the same reason the state didn't want to take it, they got gun shy apparently because of the cost of the expropriation, so they ran from it. They're looking for other alternatives, I'm sure, but this isn't one of them. So, I mean, when you have a condition that's on a map that's impossible to fulfill, my suggestion to this body is that condition will be a nullity. It goes away on its own. Now, the planning commissioners, when making their decision, all of them acting in good faith. There's no question about that. Nobody's here to be mean to anybody. They were doing the best that they could under the circumstances of what they had, but they made some decent points of what they felt. They felt sympathy for the developer. But they thought their hands were tied. Well, they weren't. Here's why. One of the things they were worried about, and this they got balled up in this. They said, look, if a developer makes an agreement on a plat, you're going to get, we can't change yours. We can't release you from it because when somebody else asks for that change, we're scared that something's going to happen to us. Well, that's a very short-sighted view of facts and circumstances that evolve and change. They focused on a subdivision called Oak Lake subdivision. They went right to it, said, developer wanted Oak Lake, we wouldn't give it to them, we're scared if we give it to you, they're going to sue us. Now, the Oak Lake circumstances, I'm going to ask Mr. Murphy to give us the Reader's Digest version of that because he was the engineer on that project as well. And if you would, Derek, state the operative facts of that request for a removal of a condition on their plat.
Good afternoon, Appeals Board, Council. Derek Murphy with Quality Engineering. During the hearing for the preliminary plat, one or two commissioners talked about Oak Lake, which had other stipulations as well. And that, on that preliminary plat, there were stipulations put on for the approval based on traffic improvements being done. Those traffic improvements were inside an existing DOTD right-of-way, and construction was already started and ongoing. The issue there was the timing. The timing was weather-related, approval-related, permitting-related, and so forth. But the issue was is that those, in that particular case, the improvements could be done. It could have happened. There's right-of-way there. There's right-of-way being dedicated by different people. It was already in motion. It wasn't a fact that it never could happen because they didn't acquire the land, or there never was a possibility of it happening. It was available to be happen. It was available. It was a matter of timing, and that's what the situation was. They had alternatives, which was build turn lanes, which did not, which was hard to do when they was already constructing the roundabout and different things like that. So they, even though the Planning Commission talked about that particular project, there was great differences in that project versus this project. This project can't physically be done. They don't have, the developer does not have expropriation powers, and the DOTD has basically abandoned trying to do that by looking at alternative routes. So this physically is an impossibility for the developer to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. Bottom line is, in Oak Lake, there's a traffic improvement that was slow. In this one, it ain't gonna happen. Will not happen. And I say again, just because the Planning Commission wants it to happen some mysterious way before they approve Phase 3, they can't do that because they're imposing new conditions on the subdivision that weren't imposed on them in 2015. It's different. They can't do that now. So, worry about Oak Lake and other developers. Valid point. They can't make it, but do you make exceptions to rules? Do you make exceptions to rules that are clear from the circumstances? Sure you do. You can. We just showed you how to distinguish this one, and the Planning Commission logically could make that jump. They just didn't make it. One of the planning commissioners did desire that the road improvement be built before removing the condition. Well, back to what I said before. You can ask for it, but you can't get it. It's not required. It wasn't part of the original approval. The one said, we're going to hold you to your agreements. All right? Now, most lawyers, when somebody walks in their office, say, did you sign something? That's kind of where it all starts, you know? Yeah, they signed it. But I've given you the background of where this originated and where the collaborative effort between the parish and the state involving this developer and their property, to the extent that this developer went forward and spent approximately $380,000 in road improvements on Belle Savant Avenue to handle the additional traffic and weight that was going to be stimulated from a connection to Bluff Road to LA 73 through its subdivision. They spent the money. And not only did they spend the money, they had a commitment from the parish to give them credit for it, I guess against some kind of impact fees or whatever you get credit for, or pay them for it when the connection took place. When the state had decided to abandon this, and everybody sort of backed off, the word that came floating back in the direction of the applicant was, well, if there's never a connection to Bluff Road from Belle Savant Avenue, there will be no credits, there will be no reimbursement. But this developer's out $380,000 they spent in anticipation that that was going to happen. So in a way, that adds insult to their injury. They spent the money, like I said, They drank the same Kool-Aid the parish did from the state. They relied on promises. So when the planning commissioners look at this developer and say, you shouldn't have relied on the state, that's your problem. This parish relied on it too, and they were complicit in it. You all wanted it. You still want it. You just don't want it there. Not anymore. I think that pretty much summarizes where the planning commissioners sort of stood on it. I don't think any of them were valid reasons, and I think they relied on factors that they shouldn't have relied on. But it was more about the fear of the unknown than it was about the facts that were before them, because the facts were before them made a compelling case to say, ditch it, go ahead and build it, because you've done everything else we asked you to do. I would remind the council of this, is that, I mean, there are some civil code articles that could be consulted to address this, but essentially what they say is that when you have a suspensive condition that becomes impossible, it's a nullity. It goes away. Now, how do you solve that? Well, we need you guys to help this developer to solve it. And that's why we're here tonight, because we all know, based on the evidence that's in your binder and the communications that have been made, that the state is not going to build this connection to Belle Savant Avenue. So I've got a developer over here that's got 41 acres roughly of land in Phase 3, that if he wants to fence it and put a couple of horses on it for his kids, that's about all he can do with it right now, because he's landlocked. And y'all know where this property is. It's very expensive property. And if you don't remove that condition, he's got to do something else. He's got to seek help somewhere else. But we need you to help us. We need you to do the right thing tonight, remove that condition from that preliminary plat, and then we can all go on and get this finished. And just so we're clear, the only thing in front of this board tonight, Board of Appeals or the council, is this condition. There were people talking about at the Planning Commission. They wanted to talk about drainage. They wanted to talk about connecting to Crestview. I mean, I've mentioned that in here. Nobody wants to connect to Crestview. Just know that you have that to solve your problem, but you create another problem. I mean, let's don't create more problems, and let's focus on what we have tonight. Condition 3 and the factors that I've just mentioned. You can't come to any other decision but to say it should have been removed, and the Planning Commission should have removed it. They were just afraid to do it. So, there I have it. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Cobb. At this time, I would like to ask Jerome and Joey if they would help us to kind of understand what happened from the parish's perspective on this and how this contingency was applied. And I think that would be a benefit, especially to councilmen who were not looking at this 5 years ago.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chairman.
You're welcome.
Jerome Fournier, Director of Planning and Development for the parish. This project, as Mr. Cohn stated, was approved by the Planning Commission in 2015, right? And at that time, there was the anticipation that Belle Savant Boulevard would connect all the way to Bluff Road, all right? Since that time, the parish has entered into discussions with DOTD, and another alternate route is basically being considered right now, and there's a lot of advanced work that I'll have Mr. Joey Toureau kind of go over with you on a route that's north of here, basically, to kind of exactly tell you what went on with this, or not exactly, but from DOTD's perspective. DOTD's objective is to remove the red light at Seabro, right? And their objective is to remove that light because they don't want cars backing up on the Interstate 10 and queuing up to exit Interstate 10 on the interstate, all right? And their feeling is, and it's somewhat intuitive, is that wrecks that happen at 60 miles an hour are a lot more dangerous than the wrecks that happen at 30 or 25. So their objective is to remove the traffic light at Seabro. And in order to do that, they were going to create a right-in, right-out at Seabro, all right? So that's their objective, and it's still their objective, all right? This Belle Savon connection was to provide an alternate route from traffic getting from Bluff to 73 and from 73 to Bluff, right? Since that time, and because of the difficulty in acquiring the property in order to make that connection, another route, as suggested by DOTD and also looked at by the parish, is being considered right now, all right? I want to clarify a couple of points that Mr. Cohn made. We understand that there was added cost in providing Belle Savon Boulevard. We acknowledge that. But first off, there was never an agreement for any traffic impact fee credits on this project. They had applied. I received a letter from their engineer asking for credits. The road itself is not part of the traffic impact fee credit program or the traffic impact fee program. In order for that to occur, it has to come to you as council in order to put that in the program. And any agreement that's over $50,000 in value has to go to you as a council and approve, all right? That never occurred, all right? So there was no agreement, there was nothing in place for traffic impact fee credits, all right? So I just wanted to get that out. But right now, I'd like Mr. Turow to get up there and possibly show you on the overhead the new alignment that we've been working with DOTD on, as well as our engineer, all right?
John's going to be able to put that on.
John, can you put on the overhead, please? Thank you.
There we go. As Joey Turow with Transportation Department of the parish, as Jerome had mentioned, DOTD was in support of the extension of Belle Savon to connect to Bluff Road. DOTD did have negotiations with the property owner that the property that it would take to do that, but they, for various reasons, including the fact that Belle Savon Boulevard is not conducive to a nice, clean flow of unencumbered flow of traffic, and they did see another opportunity further to the south. And they admitted that it is a little closer to Seabro than Belle Savon, but that short distance was not a big factor. It's still farther enough away from Seabro and I-10 to where they could accomplish their goal. And it was, a road that was not constructed yet, so it could be constructed as needed to be conducive to smooth traffic flow unencumbered. So they saw that opportunity of being able to build a road with at least limited access. It may have some access, but it can be zoned to where it'll have limited access, so the flow of traffic will be much better. So they saw that as a better situation than the extension of Belle Savon Boulevard. DOTD came to us with that. So what we at the parish have done, we want this to happen as soon as possible. For that reason, we did not seek any federal funding or state funding. We're doing this as we've made this a Move Ascension project. The reason why we're doing that is we already have consultants that we can assign immediately, and we have done that. We've assigned this project, we've named it as a Move Ascension project. We've assigned it to a consultant. The consultant has met with a property owner. They are getting
releases to be able to go onto their property to start the preliminary work. And the preliminary part is to do geotechnical sampling, to do topo work, to locate all the different aspects in what would be the swath of the roadway. And, what you see here is something very similar to what DOTD had presented, but it is the consultant's drawing of where the new roadway would be at. This is, the top, so it's facing north, as you see. So that the north of this picture going that direction would be I-10. So this is LA 73 over here. Belle Savon is further to the south. So this part right here is Belle Savon. This is another subdivision right here. But as you see, most all of this picture of where the line is at is in the wooded area. So it's gonna, it is not gonna, it's gonna do the, it'll allow for the roadway to be built as a through traffic roadway. So that's why this was seen as a better alternative. So we are working in this direction. We have all in the intent of, getting it done as soon as possible. Like I said, we've got consultants on board. We've made contact with property owners. Not all of them yet, I don't think, but we've, we're not stopping, we're not slowing anything down. We're working towards that direction of getting this road built and helping traffic flow. And this, there was a corridor study done by DOTD, and this is in line with that corridor study, and that this would improve traffic flow in the area. There's several other things that would help this corridor, but this is part of it that was seen as a way to improve traffic and really to get that signal, as Jerome mentioned, to get that signal away from Seabrook. So, I'll answer any questions you have.
Does anyone have any questions at this time? Mr. Ogeron?
Mr. Turo, you're saying that the parish is going to pay for this new road, the connector between 73 and Bluff?
Yes,
Okay. But the state wants it to?
correct.
Okay. We're not getting any funds from the state.
Nope.
State changes its mind. State says, we're going to forget about the developer, we're going to forget about the parish, we're going to say we want something somewhere else, but you have to pay for it. Essentially, that's what we're dealing with.
Well, the extension of Belle Savon was actually going to be part of a road swap. They were going to build it for us, but we would still have to essentially pay for it, and we would own it. And we're going to own this one also, but we were going to own the other one also. So both of them would be our maintenance.
Difference in price between the two projects?
I'm not sure that our consultant hadn't put a price together yet. They've just hit, just about 3-4 weeks ago, got them on board, and, I have to wait for them. But this will be a better alternative. That's why we're going this direction.
I see Mr. Quintmore isn't here tonight, at least I don't think he is. Do you know what his position is on this?
I've gotten input from John Diaz, and he's all for it.
He's all for the new road?
Yes.
Okay. What are their position on overturning this appeal? Do you know what that is? Mr. Fournier?
Yes, Mr. Ogeron, I'd like to state that the administration supports the decision of the Planning Commission, but the administration also realizes that there's been much more information that's been available to us from what Joey is talking us now, as well as getting the engineer on board and get everything else, That's happened since the Planning Commission decision, all right? So we've got a lot more information now than when this went to the Planning Commission, all right?
So
But
does the administration have a recommendation this evening?
the administration supports the decision of the Planning Commission. All right.
Any other questions? I think Mr. Robert had one.
Has any right-of-way been acquired?
No, we're still, we haven't actually drawn the lines yet. They're doing topo work, so that's kind of first phase later
So
on.
realistically, you'll probably look at getting right-of-way about a year and a half, 2 years from now, so we're probably looking at 3 years before this is done at the earliest.
If you were talking about a DOTD project, that would be the timeline, but that's why we did not go with DOTD funds or federal funds.
So realistically, what's our timeline to begin and to
I got
finish?
that from our consultant, which HNTB, and they've spelled out a timeline with assistance from that consultant. The topo work, is being done now, as I'd mentioned. Geotechnical work by mid-February. You mentioned right-of-way maps should be done by May of next year. The final design in November of next year, and with all of that, the construction would be in early 2022.
And completion, a year?
Yeah, I guess so, maybe sooner. It'll be an attractive project for a contractor because you have no traffic.
So
you can-
realistically, we could see this happen within 2 years?
Yes. And that's why we did not go with federal funding, is we can
Okay.
do that without the cumbersomeness of getting checks by DOTD on every little phase. We can move.
Any other questions? Mr. Lawler?
Yeah, just to add to what Mr. Turo was saying, we had a meeting, I want to say it's maybe 2 months ago, you and I, John Diaz, I forget who else, I think we had somebody else there, but we discussed the different modes of funding this and the decisions, the pros and cons of each. And if we funded this ourselves, the timeline was certainly moved up. Like you said, it was going to be about a 2-year project. If we decided to rely on state funds or federal funds, there are 2 issues with that. Number one, it delays the projects immensely, especially if the state doesn't have the money, they don't put the money in the budget. We've seen that with some of our roundabouts. Park Road 929 is a good example of it, where we've been waiting for year after year for the $1 million to be put into the budget, and it keeps getting moved to the next year. Now, right now, it's in 2021. Well, last year was in 2020, the year before that was in 2019. It's been moved along. We didn't want to take that chance here because this is a high-traffic area, tons of problems, as I'm sure you all know. The decision was made to spend a little bit of money, and let's get it done sooner rather than later. Additionally, if we go with state or federal money, that adds additional requirements where even though we're getting some of the money from them, the costs go up because we have to do more studies and more work goes into it. So the savings isn't as great as normally you would think it would be. So we did make this decision to move quickly on it, and part of it was we, Tiki Duplessis was not being done. That decision was made due to the opposition to it. So we had some money that we could figure out where we wanted to put this. And this was a really good project it's very much needed. And as Joey mentioned, there was a corridor study of this area. That study showed that this would be beneficial. Some other work on the other side of I-10 would also be beneficial. So all of that is going to go into this to redo that whole area. We're not paying for all of it, but this is one project that we're willing to pay for to move quickly. On a related note, they're doing a corridor study, or they're set to start doing a corridor study of the old Perkins Highland Road, by Blue Bayou all the way to the Ascension side of things. They're going to look at that whole area, the state is, and that's going to lead to more projects down the road for that area. So this area is getting done first. Maybe that'll be done later on. But I think we made a good decision on moving quickly on this because when we wait for state or federal funds, 3, 4, 5 years before this thing is done. And you can ask the people that drive that way every day, they don't want to wait that long.
Thank you, Mr. Lawler. Any further questions or comments? Mr. Lambert?
On Seabro, is it going to be strictly right hand on 73, or what were you saying earlier about Seabro?
DOTD's goal is once this connection made, they would make Cebro a right in, right out only, onto LA 73.
Okay,
So if you're coming from the interstate, you could take a right onto Cebro, and if you left out of Cebro onto 73, you would be forced to take a right.
it's forced to take a right.
Correct. Now, just to let you know, the goal, or, you know, what we would like to happen is maybe have DOTD build a roundabout at this road and LA 73. So that would allow, those that wanted to go, say, from Cebro onto the interstate, they could take that right, hit the roundabout, make a U-turn, and go to the interstate there. So that would, you know, that would make that less cumbersome.
I got you. The other question, I was looking at the map. In Phase 3, the 41 acres, does it connect to the Ascension Parish School Board's property on Highway 73, which eventually will be connected to Cary Lane to go out on Highway 74? Does this property, Phase 3, touch the Ascension Parish School Board property?
No.
I'm looking at this first map here. I don't know if it's not going all the way to it, but I see Ascension Parish School Board property and the 41 acres that he's talking about. Does it touch? It doesn't? There's a pipeline and it's showing Ascension Parish School Board property.
Touches the school board property in the existing Phase 1, but I also believe that's at the end of that Callaway Avenue. That's the neighborhood just south of it.
I haven't really studied that part very well. I'd have to defer to somebody
Well,
else on
the
that.
reason why I'm bringing it up, it looks a lot quicker to me, and we all looking for a quick fix here. I mean, that's a pretty good right of way. You're gonna clean all the way from Highway 73 to all the way to Bluff Road. I'm just looking for something a little bit quicker here. That's what I'm trying to see. It doesn't show it all the way, but I mean, it shows on Phase 3 that it does touch the Ascension Parish School Board property.
Mr., if I might add, Mr. Lambert, Councilman Lambert.
Sure.
The area that you're looking at does in fact touch the very lower end of the property, but it's right at Johnson Bayou, and there's some drainage issues that are concerned with that. There is the intent of of DOTD to work with the parish to get Cary Lane connected to the back end of Dutchtown High School, all right? And that would give an alternate route from the parking lot in Dutchtown High School onto 74, all right? But there's been no intention to connect that route, Cary Lane, all the way into Belle Savon.
Well, I'm looking at this, you know, just like you said, there's a developer problem, there's a parish problem, there's a state problem. I'm trying to help balance everything here.
Okay.
And this looks, to me, a little bit quicker, but this is what we're here for, to talk it out.
I think the timeline to get that connector road, you know, is quicker than, you know, what you see, especially, you know, if we went the DOTD route. It's certainly you know, the quickest, a very quick way. You know, as far as what's quickest of all these alternatives, I don't know. But we are working towards, with a lot of help from the school board, to connect Cary Lane to Dutchtown High School, and it would connect in between the football field to the west, and then I think it's the track field to the right, to the east. So that's where Cary Lane ties in right now, is right like in the middle of school property. So to try to take that and extend further to the north, you'd have to go through the high school. You know, that would be.
Well, and let's face it, there's children, I mean, there's high school kids walking up and down Highway 73 all along there. I'd rather see them walking behind going into this subdivision instead of walking out on Highway 73. And that's,
Yeah.
You know, it's, everyone knows when they turn and look, the buses, the cars, you know, it's hectic over there. I mean, and I'd rather see the kids in the back if they can let them walk.
So-
I mean,
Definitely
it's just it's too dangerous, but.
Well, you know, with the help, like I said, with the help of the school board, we're gonna hopefully get all the, school kid, drivers onto 74 and away from 73. I mean,
Sure.
that's the goal of that project there, so. And like I said, all of this was based on the DOTD's corridor study, so we are, you know, following what the study said would
Sure.
be the best help for traffic, so that's our goal.
I'd like to remind everybody that the problem we're trying to solve here is making sure that when traffic comes off the interstate, it's not backing up onto the interstate because of the light at Seabro. That was when they met with us the very first time, that was the urgent issue. And now, of course, the interstate is open with 3 lanes, and we have still not solved that problem. We were all disappointed, frankly, in my district and in the parish when we looked at Belle Sylvain Boulevard and realized that was going to be more dangerous. That while the road was done well, the actual base of the road, all of that was done well. The construction with driveways accessing that road, while DOTD wanted to say that was sort of like Sherwood Forest Boulevard, it certainly didn't look that way to us. And we got very concerned about the children and the families in Belle Sylvain and said, look, can you guys, and at the same time, they're trying to find a way to Bluff Road out the back of Belle Sylvain and running into dozens of property owners in one route where they could not clear the titles, and another resistant property owner, and that certainly is his right. And so the urgency became to find a way to get Seabro, that light gone, right in, right out, so that we could keep the 73 from backing up and subsequently backing up onto the interstate. As Mr. Turo mentioned, what Dr. Calavota talked about with us about was we cannot let people be being rear-ended on the interstate. Those are high-speed collisions, lots of injury and with some degree of risk of fatality. And so it was important to find that alternative route. When they took a good hard look at this area, they found this path. I think they're working diligently to get that done because there has been this, what I think is a serious delay in getting this accomplished. So my goal is to protect my citizens in Belle Sylvain. I certainly wanted answers about Crestview, which we understand they are not going to access Crestview. But I want to make sure that none of my constituents are sitting on that interstate trying to get off when they're plowed in the rear by somebody headed to New Orleans. So we really need to make a decision tonight. I feel terrible about this contingency because, in fact, it was myself and Derek Murphy standing right outside those double doors that came up with this idea that this might be a route through to the Bluff. DOTD had already mentioned it to us, and we said, is there a way that you all would help us with that? And they got on board, really were willing to help us to solve a problem. But the more DOTD looked at it, then when the problem appeared to be, when the road was finished and we looked at it, we were like, wait a minute, this was not the solution we thought. It looked better on the map than it looked after it had been constructed. And so we're trying to protect everybody here. My position is certainly that we need to hear out the public who are here, and then we need to ask Jerome and Joey if they have any more comments, and then at that point, Mr. Khan's going to have an opportunity to speak again. I think Councilman Malassaw wanted to ask a question.
Oh, yeah, just one on Mr. Turo. This new connector road, what would this intersection at 73 look like? Would there be a red light there?
We're going to provide turn lanes there, left and right. It'll be a T intersection. It's really up to DOTD to stipulate, whether it warrants a signal or not. I would certainly think it would, because that's the whole, goal of, if you take away the Seabrook signal, you would put it, at this connector road. And, our ultimate goal would be for them to put a roundabout, something like that, that would really, help traffic flow. But I would think in the short term, it would be a signalized intersection.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Mr.
Yeah, if I could get John to turn on the overhead again, I just wanted to show you the Kerry Lane connection. Here's Highway 74 runs this way. Here's Kerry Lane. And as you can see, in this, Councilman Lambert, this is the parcel that you were talking about right up here. So it really traverses, in order to get to that parcel, it's a kind of circuitous route, and it also crosses Johnson Bayou. And so it's a real drainage issue in order to make that connection, right? So I think from the parish's perspective, it may be a little impractical, right? But again, the school district is working with us, as Joey said, and they want this connection from Kerry Lane to tie into the back end of the school, right? And they're working on that particular project, right?
And to remind you, that would do nothing to help us get from 73 to Seabrook, to the Bluff.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so at this time, it is time for the public to weigh in. I have a comment to be made from Mr. Bernard Pancheca. Good evening, sir. Thank you for being with us tonight. And I apologize that the air conditioning's not on in this building.
Oh, I feel better than I look. Thank you.
Well, we're all suffering up here.
No doubt. Well, thank you for giving me a few minutes here to speak. I think most everyone touched up on everything that I had to say today.
Good.
In particular, I am a resident of Crestview Estates since 2006. And I was here for that meeting in December of 2015. And I heard a lot of things that worried me at that time about traffic coming through my subdivision with the building of this new subdivision here. Belle Savant has surprised me. I'm actually glad they're there. We want to be good neighbors about everything. There have been some issues that haven't been related to me personally, with trees in the back of the subdivision and things like that. But my main comment here today was basically to reassure myself that, as you mentioned earlier, it's not going to go through my neighborhood. There's nothing there that shows any reason why it would. Crestway Avenue is not built like Belle Savant Main Street. It's not wide enough. It doesn't have sidewalks. It doesn't have a divider. You'd be throwing all kind of traffic in there that doesn't meet the specification per se. So at the end of the day, I just wanted to make sure that Crestview Estates was represented, to make sure that we support them being able to find a way out of this mess that everyone's kind of been involved in, but we don't want to come to our neighborhood.
I agree with you 100%.
All right, thank you.
I called Jerome more than once about that.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. And then there are two folks here who are in support of this, but do not have desire to speak. And I have another red card I see out in the audience. Sir, if you'll just make that available to the secretary, she'll hand it to me. Thank you. Mr. Orlando Smith, and you are also a resident of Questway Avenue.
Yes, I am.
Thank you for being
I got
here,
a
sir.
quick question, couple of questions. The map they're showing you is of property behind Crestway. They're talking about going to 73. If y'all remember, I don't know, I'm new to this neighborhood and everything. I'm originally from Houma. When I moved in this neighborhood, that was woods. A couple of years afterwards, they were saying that that was an old dump and they couldn't build on it. So I want to know, what's the criteria to build on the old dump? Because it shouldn't be, you couldn't be able to build on a dump, correct? And if y'all go over there now, they got tires stacked up. They had wash machines, dryers. I live on the backside of it. And going through there with that road, I don't think is a good idea because simple fact, like I said, it's a dump. They just cleared it out maybe 6 months ago, and me and my son walked it. They got car parts, they got all kind of stuff on that road. And they want to go behind it to 73, cutting through, they have like an old gym or something. And they want to come out where where they sell the fireworks. That versus Sebro is about maybe 100 yards. So they still gonna stack up on the interstate when they come off the interstate, like you were saying earlier. So I advise y'all to pay real close attention to that because that shouldn't be. I also went through Belle Sylvain this morning. They already started phase 3 of it through the backside. Yes, they have the pipeline in the woods right there. I don't understand why the parish couldn't even allocate that land there as well. It's a mess. Yes, I live here, Sebro, Bluff Road, 5 o'clock, you can't get on or off there. It's a problem. It's a big problem, yes. But if y'all would research a little bit more about Belle Sylvain, going through there, away from I-10, and it'll kind of, there's Spanish Lake on Bluff. If you go through there, that will probably settle y'all differences because the traffic would alleviate itself. Because a lot of people coming from the plants off of 74, taking Bluff, going north to Airline, or they cutting on Sebro and trying to get to the interstate. All that's a mess. I done seen a dozen wrecks there, more than I could count. Even at late at night when I used to go to work, late at night they would have accidents right there coming out your neighborhood. So I'm saying it's just y'all should really take the time and look at this before anything. I mean, but
Thank you, sir.
I still think that empty field, y'all need to check into being an old dump.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your comment. Mr. Turo.
We've only just started exploring that piece of property. We are aware that there was landfill or whatever you call it. The property owner, we've had discussions with, and they presented us some documents, and we have copies of those documents. Actually, the consultant has them, and it's going to be his responsibility to make sure that it was mitigated properly. The property owner claims that it was. And like I said, he gave us documents, but it's going to be our consultant's duty to check that out and make sure it's something that we can build a road upon.
Thank you, Mr. Turo. Appreciate you very much. I see a gentleman with his hand up, and since you certainly may. And which one of these?
Brandon.
Brandon Burr?
Yes, ma'am.
All righty. Go right ahead, Brandon. Welcome.
I am a resident of Belle Sylvain. I originally didn't intend to speak, but I guess from my standpoint, I don't have an objection to release level to finish the development. I am highly against connecting through in any regard. Our neighborhood has a ton of children. It is extremely active. Daily, weekly, we have buses that can't get through because people parked on the road. The median is not built to what I would say a good standard. People drive through it. It's not raised, it's lowered. Just to put that much traffic through our neighborhood would cause just an enormous amount of problems. I mean, from my standpoint, we don't even get to have the fire truck with the Santa Claus come on our neighborhood anymore because they can't get through. So to think to put the whole parish as a cut through would just create even more problems. While we do connect to the high school, again, that's wetlands, that water rises every time it rains. I would hate to see that being developed more, just to push that into my backyard. So I just wanted to say that while I don't think the phase 3 necessarily affects that, to hold that up and to ultimately try to push through the neighborhood, which was obviously recommended, would not be good for anybody with a family in that neighborhood. And I would like y'all to think if y'all lived there, y'all wouldn't want to see that much traffic through your neighborhood.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes, you may, Mr.
Can I
Malone.
ask him one question?
Yes, Mr. Malone.
Mr. Burns?
He is Mr. Burr.
I do have one question. Whenever you bought that home, were you the original owner of that house?
I was one of the first ones that was built about 2
Okay.
years ago.
Did the realtor or anybody make you aware that this neighborhood had the potential to be a cut through?
They did say it was potential, but
Okay.
they also said we could put up a fence and block the road and have a private drive, but I assume y'all probably wouldn't allow us to block it if y'all allow it.
Okay, I was just curious if the residents were actually aware that this was a stipulation before buying in there.
Yeah, it was not well advertised, but it was discussed that it was a possibility later.
Thank you.
And Miss Heather Lambert would like to speak. She lives on Crestway as well. Hi, Heather.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
I am not opposed to necessarily letting Belzavane develop their property. And no, it's not great to put a major road through a neighborhood full of children, because I have very small children. We play in the street all the time. So I agree that it's not the best course to put a road all the way through. But to take one problem and dump it in another backyard, are we really solving the problem of getting the traffic off of 73 by putting it so close and then through somebody else, another backyard? Yes, there's nothing going on there. But is that the safest place to put it when you're stacking up Bluff for stop sign to get out of our neighborhood, and then another stop sign or a light at Crest, whatever the new road would be, and then at Seabro if somebody needs to go through that. So you're stacking up 3, intersections right there. Is there a alternative to look a little bit further south, maybe through the pipeline or something like that, if there's, a possibility of that, moving it even further south to get that cut through, instead of doing that as well as the road that's projected actually does impact the last neighbor in my neighborhood and taking off some of their property, and what's going to secure him from his property being impacted, his family. What's that? No one's going to drive 25 through there. I guarantee that. Nobody drives 25 on Seabro, or 35, it's 35. Nobody does that. So what's going to impact that? How many wrecks are we going to have on that road? Because there's no houses, so people are less apt to drive the speed limit. And who's going to protect those property owners? Either even the ones that are on the Seabro side, the street will be backed up to them. So not only they're going to have a road in front of them, they're going to have a road behind them. And what's that going to look like for those property owners and those families, as well as the property owner at the very end of our neighborhood, that the corner of his property is going to be taken off, and if somebody takes that corner wrong, it's going to come through his house. And so I think that it looks fine and dandy, but only moving a road 500 feet down, is that the best course for the parish to have a road just to alleviate a little bit of traffic? But then you're stacking up in another area. So that's thank you.
Thank you so much for commenting. Okay, at this time, the appellate has 10 minutes, if he desires it, to make any kind of rebuttal or offer any other.
Hold 10.
Oh, thank you, sir.
I'll be quick. If I can find my glasses. Never
I was
mind.
struggling with that when I got here. Couldn't find mine.
Well, whether Belle Savon will ever be an extension, I don't think is gonna, I think Mr. Turow has confirmed that ain't gonna happen. And all the debate amongst the council members tells me, y'all all knew something coming in here that I didn't know, and I'm always the last one to know anything, even when I go home. So, but I was pleased to hear the comments because it supports everything I'm telling you. And when you think of the purpose of that condition 13, when you're making your decision, the purpose of that condition was to let the connector get built when the state was going to build it. But right now, it's not going to get built. So that condition 13 bears no rational relationship to its purpose. None. Zero. So I think, the only decision you can really reach is to wipe that condition off the plat, let the development go through, and then y'all obviously have a lot to sort out about this other
Exactly.
access that the state's gonna hopefully get behind. And my last comment is that there was a couple of digs at the median in the subdivision. Go back to tab 6, look at that letter from Mr. Turner. That was a requirement from the state or the parish to build that median. So we built it. People don't like it, we can't help it, but it's there because there was a reason the parish wanted it in their engineering department, and we gave it to them. And it's probably serving another purpose. Probably not the purpose that the residents are unhappy about, but it's probably serving its purpose. But, we did what we were told, so don't cast us in a dark light because we built a median that nobody seems to like right now. So we ask for your blessing in removing this condition 13 from the preliminary plat. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Khan. At this time, I would like to ask for a motion to go into executive session.
Motion.
I have a motion by
Second.
Mr. Cagnolotti, a second by Mr. Dow Wagasback to go into executive session. Or is there any objection?
Roll call.
Roll call, Madam, roll call, Senator.
John has to bring it up on the screen.
We're not ready for that, Senator. We're just doing a roll call to go into
Yeah.
executive session. Or you want us to do it on here?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. All right. Where's Chase?
You said you could press.
Did Chase tell me, did Chase tell me to vote for him? Somebody grab Chase so we can. I apologize. I don't know where Mr. Moore's all went.
Coffee.
Well, you got 2/3, so you can go to executive
It's so hot in here, I don't see how anybody's drinking coffee.
Terry,
Goodness gracious.
that satisfies the vote.
Well, yeah, we,
Yeah, it is. Gotta bring it.
Harry, that satisfies.
okay, we can go. Thank you very much. God has unanimous.
It's 10 degrees cooler.
Motion to reconvene, Madam Chairman.
I have a motion by Mr. Cagnalati, a second by Mr. Melanson to reconvene.
Madam Chair, at this point, I would like to make a motion to overturn the planning committees and release them of this stipulation.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Melanson and a second by Mr. Ogeron to release Belle Sylvain from this contingency. Are there, gentlemen, would you open the voting machines, please? And there are sufficient votes. We needed 8, there are 10, and so you are released from that contingency.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion by Mr. Lawler and a second by Mr. Cagnalati to adjourn. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here, and all of you.
Let's go get some